Is Slay the Princess as good as people say it is? Yes, and it's easily one of my favorite indie games out there. Made by Black Tabby Games, an indie studio made up of co-founders and married couple Abby Howard and Tony Howard Arias, Slay the Princess was released on October 23rd, 2023, to a very welcoming audience. Selling over 100,000 copies in just 1 month, it's safe to say it was good. But what makes it good? Well, allow me to briefly describe the story for you.
Say, do you ever think about dying?
From time to time, yes. Why do you ask?
I just wonder what comes next, you know? Is there a god waiting for us? Perhaps a hell in its flames. Or do we reincarnate as something new? Or maybe we cease entirely.
That's just something we'll never really know. Corvids. Signs of bad luck and omens of death. When looking into the ominous mirror that's accompanied us, our character resembles one. A Corvid. The wiki states, he has black talon-like fingernails, rough-looking skin with scale-like patterns on the forearms, and feather-like plumage sprouting towards the upper parts of his arms, hinting that the player is either a bird-like creature, or possibly an actual bird of some kind. But just who is the player character? A man with no name. For now, let's call him Corvid. The story begins with Corvid. He's on a path in the woods, and at the end of that path is a cabin, and in the basement of that cabin is a princess. He's here to slay her, and if he doesn't, it will be the end of the world. Corvid, suddenly finding himself here, has a multitude of options ahead of him. He can move forward to seek out and slay the princess, or he can struggle with this daunting task and refuse to. Maybe even turn his back and walk away. Either way, the narrator will have something to say. He'll speak to Corvid and share his own opinions and guidance. Very quickly does this story shift from that of a generic, story-centric visual novel to a more direct, immersive experience. You are no longer playing and being narrated to. Every one of your choices will amount to something, and people will have something to say about them. People. Enter the voice of the hero. A separate, disembodied voice in Corvid's head that has his own ideals and hesitance to slay a random princess. Once Corvid reaches the cabin, it's almost entirely bare. The air is musty and the floor and walls are painted in a fine layer of dust. The only furniture of note is a plain wooden table. Perched on that table is a pristine blade. Corvid is conflicted to either take the blade or leave it. He opens the door to the basement, revealing a staircase faintly illuminated by an unseen light in the room below. The air feels heavy and damp, a hint of rot filtering from the ancient wood. The voice of the princess carries up the stairs, and depending on Corvid's choices to take the dagger, her tone will differ, almost like she knows what he chose.
Who's there? Hello? Is someone there?
Corvid steps down and sees the princess chained up to the far wall. The conversation can be kind and caring, or steeped in adversity. Corvid has his choice of slaying her, talking with her, leaving her, freeing her. Most things will lead to his demise. Everything goes dark, and he dies. He opens his eyes, and he's back on the same path in the woods. When questioning the narrator seems confused and irritated, just wanting Corvid to move along and slay the princess. But last time went so horribly wrong, says another voice, so nonchalantly introducing himself. Depending on how Corvid died, a new voice will appear in his head to give his own 2 cents. When Corvid goes back to the cabin, he sees that the interior has shifted. The narrator describes the new room, but fails to describe the ominous mirror in the room. Corvid and the voices are quick to point that out. The narrator claims there is no mirror, still ushering them along. And even among touching the mirror, we see it was never truly there. As Corvid goes down the stairs, he sees that not only has the interior changed, but so has the princess. With every death, a new voice, a new interior, and a more volatile form of the princess. Eventually, Corvid succeeds. What that means depends on the choices made. But in the end, a multitude of arms reach out, grasp the princess, enveloping her as they fall into themselves. The long quiet. Pure nothingness. Nothing except a mirror. That same damned mirror. The narrator is gone, and the voices exclaim their fear. Nevertheless, Corvid moves forward and finally sees his form. It's him. He sees the princess where the cabin would be, still enveloped in arms and hands as they hold her and cover her eyes.
Something finds me in the long quiet and brings me the gift of a fragile vessel.
The princess is different now. Like herself, but only a fragment so. Her answers are vague and confusing. When asked if she knows the narrator, she replies,
You are the only thing I have ever known. Nothing comes here but us.
She calls her current form a perspective. She beckons Corvid to bring her more perspective so that they may be whole, and perhaps then they will both know freedom. This means going back to the same path, losing his memories, but making different choices. Corvid agrees to acquire more perspectives. Everything goes dark, and he dies.
Are you scared of it?
Dying? No. Are you?
At times. It is the world's greatest unknown, after all.
What scares you most about it?
Losing you. What if I never see you again?
Well, would you rather live in a world where death doesn't exist? Then we'd never lose each other.
Well, no. Death is important. The circle of life and all that, you know?
I agree, but it's best not to think of what scares you. Instead, believe what gives you peace. That's how religion came to be, after all.
What belief gives you the most peace?
Reincarnation. The fact that even if I lose you here, I'll find you all over again somewhere else. I played Slay the Princess on a whim. I saw it was getting some traction, and with some of my favorite channels and my good friend recommending I play it, I just went for it. I went in completely blind, just how I like my playthroughs in any other form of media. And I'm so glad I did. The story captivated me from the start. The hook of being able to speak with the narrator immediately drew me in, something akin to the Stanley Parable. I am given all these options and one goal given to me. Slay the princess. But who is the princess? Hell, who even am I? The narrator was vague and pushy, so I just went forward, seeing for myself whether or not slaying her was the right choice. I picked up the dagger, went down the stairs, and the princess was immediately defensive. Granted, I held a pristine blade in my hand, but she never made a convincing case for herself. I attempted to slay her. I didn't expect her to fight back, and so valiantly too, beating my character to death, but not before he could drive the blade into her chest. Everything went dark, and I died. I easily fell in love with the way this game played out. Start in Chapter 1, make some choices that will lead to a new voice in your head and a new form for the princess, all for the purpose of collecting that unique perspective and bringing it back to her. But who was she? Who were we? Who was the narrator? Why did we have to do this? Why does the world end when we fail to slay her? On my second recording, I was so excited to get back into it and see what I could do next. What new ways to manipulate the story that never felt boring. It always found a way to surprise me or disturb me. I love discovering new things and making new theories of how this game was supposed to play out. And I had a key theory in the back of my mind I wanted to believe. A headcanon, one might say. Finally reaching the mirror one last time, I was ready to see what new form my body took, as it had changed with every new perspective. But that didn't happen this time. Instead, I saw the narrator. A Corvid. The mirror we've seen over and over again suddenly lay shattered on the ground. The narrator lay there in pieces, finally being able to talk down to him. He who had been toying with me, forcing me, ridiculing me, now lay helpless. What a powerful experience that was. And finally I got my answers. I am the long quiet, and the princess is the shifting mound. We were the cycle of life and death, and he tore us apart and made us gods. To slay her would mean ending death. I was given one final choice: to slay the princess. And I refused to. What a beautiful masterpiece. For how small the game felt at first, it ended up feeling massive. To reach the ending, I spent about 3 hours. Time flies when you're having fun, and when I say it did not feel like that much time had gone by, I mean it. I don't usually enjoy visual novels. They're not my cup of tea. But for Slay the Princess, I would sip that tea over and over again. Hell, I'd drink the whole pitcher. Now, no game is perfect. I did notice some voice lines where the audio kind of clipped, or the line was cut at the end a little too quickly, so it kind of sounded like it just stopped. But those were rare finds that didn't bother me too much. I just work with audio as a voice actor myself, so my ears tend to draw to that. But that's really my only critique. This game was fantastic. The story was captivating, the soundtrack was beautiful, it was impactful, it was tense. My god, the soundtrack was gorgeous. I'm a sucker for a good soundtrack when I consume media. It can easily make or break a scene, and man, did it make every scene just 10 times better. I know for the D&D campaigns I run, this soundtrack will find its home there. The voice acting. Good heavens, props to Jonathan Sims and Nicole Goodnight. They had the daunting task of playing characters with so many different voices and perspectives, and let me tell you, they cooked. They cooked so hard. I was so impressed with how different each new voice or each new princess would feel. I found myself genuinely excited to hear what new voice Corvid had in his head or the princess adopted in her tone. Now, the art style is truly charming. That quick sketchbook style, I feel, was what really cemented the vibe the game meant to give off. From serene to absolutely horrifying, the art was very well done. To give my interpretation of the story and the headcanon I had, this story is one of two souls. Two souls that were ripped apart when they were once together. Together through many different lifetimes. A mortal man so afraid of death, he somehow tore these two souls apart and made them gods to do his bidding, to stop death itself. See, this is what the narrator means when he says the world will end. Everyone will die if she isn't killed. Because everyone will die eventually. The narrator set up this construct with these two gods to cheat death. But these gods, these souls, always find a way to come together again. To them, death isn't a thing to be feared. To them, death is just their gateway to a new life together. Something the mortal man couldn't possibly fathom. When I was given the choice, I knew I wouldn't slay her. This was my character's soulmate, and they had finally found each other again. I could be wrong, but this is the way I like to see the story. I think it's beautiful. And that choice, that ending where they earn their freedom, is really the only ending I need.
Do you think we find each other in every life?
I do. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can look forward to more like this in the future if you stick around and gently smack that subscribe button. Big thanks to PandaLily for lending her voice to this project. Her socials are on the screen. Be sure to check her out and send some love her way. With that, I really appreciate you sticking around to the end of this video. And hey, I'll see you all next time.